Hello everyone, good evening. This is Health from VTES and Other Struggles, and tonight I'm bringing you a decklist of one of my favorite archetypes and one of my favorite decks, which are the Salubri Antitribu with Lightsabers. So this is another reasonably simple deck. The whole point of it is to get the Salubri out, give him a sword, set the sword on fire, and hit people with it, and repeat as needed. So, you do this until you soften your predator a bit, and then you can start putting pressure on your prey and actually trying to get some VPs. In this video I will discuss a few options, tricks, how to play this deck, and how to adapt it to your local playgroup. But first, if you don't know this website that I'm using, it's called Amaranth. It's a tool for deck building in which you can import the decks and put them directly on Lucky and play it, and modify them as you see fit. I will leave this link here in the video description, so you can try this deck out and modify it to fit your tastes. So, quick disclaimer about this deck: like every single deck I play, it's not a deck that wins much. I don't particularly care about taking the table and getting all of my VPs. What I care about is having a good time with my friends. And this is a deck that does this. It gives me a good time and it gives my prey a bad time, but that's the point of the game, right? If I wanted to win, I would play something meta and silly, but I don't care. I just want to play the archetypes that I like. So, with that out of the way, let's start talking about the crypt. There are two choices that you can go for with this. You can either go group 3 or 4, 3 and 4, or group 5 and 6. Let me show you here. Let's filter for Salubri Antitribu of group 5 and 6. The reason why you would consider playing group 5 and 6 is because of this guy here, Nuriel. He gets 1 additional strike, which is great, and plus 1 damage with melee weapons, so you can hit with a sword for 3 twice. That's huge, right? That's amazing. He's an 8 cost, with the 3 disciplines of the clan being Valerian, Fortitude, and Auspex on the advanced. All of that is great. You also have this lady whose name I will not try to pronounce. She is a red list with 3 strength and can burn 2 blood to unlock during your minion phase, which is great because you can rush something, untap, and bleed. She is a 9 cap with the 3 disciplines on the advanced. That's amazing. Everything else is filler. You have some reasonably low cost guys with advanced Valorant, which is great. But the reason why I am not running this is because I don't particularly care about an additional strike. What I want to do is do aggravated damage on my initial strike, so I don't need another one. And because of this little guy here, Castiel, his card text says, if he is in combat and he doesn't have a sword, you can give him a sword. And that is such an amazing ability that is difficult to put in words easily. So in VTES, your cards are your lifeblood, and cardless actions are something that you need to consider dearly. Because of course I could take an equip action to bring a sword into Nuriel, or I could play a concealed weapon. But what if I don't have the concealed weapon? What if I have 4 concealed weapons and no sword in hand, or 4 swords and no concealed? So it's difficult to be consistent in this game because it's difficult to get card advantage. And what this guy allows me to do is to skip one of those steps of requiring a special card to equip him with a sword. And that is such a huge advantage that this man carries the deck by himself. He doesn't have advanced fortitude, and that comes into play with a few of the cards that we play, but I will explain that a bit later. Everything else in the deck is just to complement him. I play Anarch Converts to cycle the crypts and to make sure that all my guys are Anarchs, so I am protected from the revolts. Aradel is usually the third one I am bringing, unless I am the fourth player and I have Dreams of the Sphinx, in which case I will bring her in the first turn. And Delay then is an 8 cost with 2 strength, which is great. And this guy is 8 cost, and in combat the opposing player plays with an open hand, which is an amazing ability. So the order that I will normally try to get these guys out is Castiel, turning to an Arc, and then Aradel, or Uriel, and then finally Della if the game for some reason allow me to have enough pool to do that. It's very simple, very straightforward. There are a few things to consider. Aradel does not have advanced aspects, so she's not a particularly good first pick, unless you can bring her in the first turn, in which case it's advantageous to have someone out that early. And also be mindful of your converts. You can use them to get one extra pull instead of drawing from the crypt. If you already have 2 Monarchs, that's usually enough. And that is the crypt. It's very simple. They are very self-explanatory. First rush of the round is always with Uriel to make sure you know with what tricks the opponent's playing. He has the advanced fortitude to keep himself safe. And now, speaking of masters, 23 masters is a bit too heavy, but it's the bare minimum that this deck needs to run properly. I have 5 copies of Anarch Revolt, because who doesn't enjoy being hated by the entirety of the table? It's really nice, because aside from being a bit counterintuitive, you can score some deals in the table. You can say, I will allow you to burn this Anarch Revolt in exchange for you not doing something that will hurt me, or for you doing something that will hurt my opponent. Because once you start taking vampires down, you are getting some political power that doesn't come with votes, and you don't have a lot of votes in this deck. This is the only one. He's a bishop. So play this. Don't start the game by playing this. This is a dick move. Everyone's going to hate you. Only play this once you have an Anarch out. 1 copy of Code of Samuel, which is your hunting ground, and with an added ability, if one of your Salubris kills something, with a direct action, that Salubri can unlock in the end of the minion phase, which is great. You're mainly using this to move the blood though, but it's still, this is great. 2 copies of Dreams of the Sphinx. You are probably not using this to accelerate vampires. You really need the hand size. Most combat decks do. 2 copies should be enough. 1 Fame, because you're going to kill guys and you need this to do damage. Bear in mind that if you have 3 vampires out and there's someone with Fame in torpor, you can rescue that person from torpor and kill it again. It sounds silly, but it's very effective because it's 3 damage every time you do that. 1 Parthenon to help cycling all of those masters that you play. I rarely ever get to put this in the game, but when it does, it helps. 1 Path of Lilith, because you are killing stuff, and killing stuff makes your prey die much faster. So when a non-Camarilla vampire you control, which are all of your vampires, sends an opposing vampire to torpor in combat, you lock this card to put a torture counter on the opposing vampire. During your unlock phase, each Methuselah who has one of those tortured guys burns 1 pool, so it's 1 extra damage is nice. You probably don't want to target anyone else with this, just your prey, but you never know. Path of Retribution. Your cards can be a bit cost intensive, so costing one less is great. No one ever bothers to burn those things. Maybe they should. So by a cost of 1, you can keep all of your guys less thirsty. It's great. Pentex Subversion. You need this in case there is a strong blocker in the field or something that's ending way too many combats. This is great to have. 3 copies of Smiling Jack because you need to win the game somehow, and this is how you do it. You put this, if people try to take it down, you fight them and kill them. Otherwise, use it sparingly. Just remember that sometimes it's worth allowing someone that is not your prey to burn this to keep your pool safe, especially if you have another one. You can strike a deal with them saying I will allow you to burn this in exchange for you to doing something that will hurt my prey. That's how I play this card. 3 vessels to keep your guys filled and to keep yourself with some extra blood in case you are not losing that much blood in combat. 2 villains to play on your 8 caps, which are Uriel and Della Eden, and 2 wider views for those days in which Castiel just doesn't want to get out of the crypt. So you'll use this to accelerate, to draw cards from the crypt, and if you already have a perfect crypt and your vampires are already set up, you pay 1 pool to gain 2, which is as good as you can get. This is not an action heavy deck. They only wanted to replace this Sense Death because in the Advanced Valorant option, which every single one of your vampires have, you get to fight something and you get an optional press that you rarely use and also an optional maneuver. So in case you're fighting something that moves to long range, you have a maneuver from your sword and a maneuver from this card to get back to close. Now, the meaty part of the deck, 37 combat cards. I am playing 6 concealed weapon, which is double the number I would actually use, because you usually will have 3 vampires out, hopefully one of them is Castiel, so he doesn't need this, but after you get swords on your 3 guys, you can safely discard all of those. This is usually what you discard when you are at the end of the turn in which you use the Dreams of the Sphinx. For Death Seekers to cancel Majesties. Its 4 might not seem like it's enough, but it actually helps on a few key moments. Also cancels some pre-range that gets very harmful and can cancel Fortitude to prevent your damage. So it's always good to have at least one of those in hand. 2 rolling with the punches. Now we get to the more technical part in which I explained that this deck doesn't prevent a lot of damage by itself, and that is by design. Because as you might imagine, this deck was not meant to fight combat decks. Combat decks will have a field day with this deck. This deck was made to fight action decks, which are the majority of decks in VTES. If you wanna fight a combat deck, you need a dedicated combat deck for yourself, otherwise they will just fortitude you to death, or aggravate damage on your guys as well. But this is as much as you can do when someone is outmaneuvering you. You burn a blood, prevent all damage, and hope for the best. This is the 2 tricks that this deck plays. And those 3 copies of Superior Metal, which costs 1. And you may burn 1 blood to prevent all damage from the initial strike this round. Each round of this combat, so if the guy is pressing, you can keep burning blood, preventing the damage. These are your tricks to keep yourself safe from extremely violent decks, but you shouldn't be fighting them. 6 Taste of VTES to keep your guys stopped after they kill stuff. far of this delightful little trick here, which the thing is, someone playing an immortal grapple at you means that you're going to have a bad time, right? Because you can't strike with your sword. But you can't cancel with this, in which case they are going to have a hard time. And the other option with this is sometimes you want something dead yesterday. If you are already doing aggravated damage and you have like a Lutz or a Hardestadt or a Danadus Forza or something at low blood because they have been velained, then you can keep your damage aggravated. So you're inflicting +1 aggravated damage. This word is another one. So you do 3 egg plus 3, 6 egg. Maybe they will prevent everything, maybe not, but preventing 6 is difficult. And taking 6 eggs is something that no one wants to do. So this is a fun card, it's a trick thing that they are not expecting you to play until it's a bit too late. Unfortunately, it's a trick that you can play only once. They will expect it, of course, after the first one, in which case you are mostly going to be using this to cancel the grapples. For Righteous Aura, which is how you actually win the game, you kill something, you play this in the vampire, he gets +2 bleed, and you burn this card if the vampire dies, but whatever. +2 bleed is a lot, considering your tool set is mainly composed of Valorant, which doesn't have a lot of bleed cards. It has one, but we don't play it because we are slot starved. And 8 copies of this, which is what the deck runs into, costs 1. And you choose one of the vampire's melee weapons for the remainder of combat. It does +1 damage, and the damage is aggravated, and your vampire can prevent 1 damage this round. So the idea, of course, is grab the sword, set it on fire, and hit stuff with it. It's very simple and has been surprisingly efficient. Costs 1, 0 with the buff. The damage prevention is handy when you're fighting action decks because they will only strike for hands. And the sword itself also helps you to land the hits because it gives you a maneuver to get back to close. And this is the engine that the deck runs into. Aside from it, there's 8 copies of the sword, which might seem like an overkill, but mainly you want to make sure that you have them, because having them and not having the concealed weapons makes you cry, or only having concealed weapons and no swords also makes you cry. So after you get 3 of those out, you are going to be discarding them with the Dreams of the Sphinx when you use it to add the hand size. And aside from it, we also have a Bow of Convergence because our guys run Auspex. And in the reactions, it's a bit too light to be playing this, considering we run the Smiling Jack. But you will see that people will go out of their way to avoid acting against you when they suspect that you were playing a wall-ish deck that can wake and kill them. And of course you can awake a little bit. You have 2 Undecree Waves and 4 of Eyes of Argus, but mostly your ways of protecting the Jack are through intimidation. So you wake 6 times in the game, or get the D plus intercept. You have this really nice Anarch reaction that you can play with Auspex and Fortitude, so your guys don't lock, and they have +1 intercept. And 4 misdirections in case you're being bled heavily and you don't want to deal with it. So a few things that you could do is, if your friends play with too many blades, you need to increase the number of misdirections here, and possibly awakes. In this case, you can drop 2 swords, You can drop one Sword of the Righteous, one Concealed Weapon, and this can give you some extra intercept, like Enhanced Senses and more misdirections. You can, of course, drop the revolts entirely, and by doing so you also can drop the Parthenon, in which case you can add more Fortitude and to prevent damage, and the Armor of Cain's Fury, which is a Salubri Antitribu card, which is great, and add a few more wakes. Aside from it, things that I would consider running are delaying tactics if your friends are playing too many politics, and I truly wish I could have found a place to put a, what's the name of that card? Oh, I don't remember. There's a master that when something dies, the controller burns one blood. You will probably know what I'm talking about. Put this in the deck. I forgot about it completely when I was making the list. And that is it, I believe. Yeah, that is it. So, thank you all for watching. If you have any suggestions on how to improve this deck, I would absolutely love to hear them. Aside from that, if you play this deck, let me know how it goes. Again, this is not a deck that will win you many matches, but is a deck that will allow you to have fun losing many matches, which is how I play. So this was me explaining to you how I play my Salubri, and as you might have guessed, I am learning as I go. I have no idea what I'm doing, and talking to myself in my room still feels really weird. So if you have any idea on how to improve this series, I would also like to hear it. Until then, hope you have a good time, a good week, and that you win more games than I do. Bye bye.